how have you kind of gone about addressing just your first time being a head coach in this rivalry?
Yeah, it is a big week. It's SMU TCU week. That's a big week every year for us. So we've not shied away from that. It's a big game. It's a big home game for us. It's our next game. But we're not preparing any different this week than we normally do. If we did, that would signal that we don't normally prepare our best. So our guys are hungry to get back out and play after last week because we feel like we did a lot of things well, but we didn't win the game, and so we're ready to get back on the field and try to get a win.
Enjoyed the soundtrack and stretch this morning.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
Yeah, that's always going to be the way it is on a rivalry week. So that's the way I've kind of done it everywhere I've ever been, and that's what we'll do.
Looking back to the game in 19, first time SMU had won in about 8 years, I want to say, or so. What do you recall from the emotions on that day, the post-game celebration y'all had?
Yeah, there was nothing like it. I think at that time, I may be wrong. I think we had lost like 7 straight, somewhere in there. And to go over to Fort Worth, they had a really good ball club too, and played really well. Offensively, we did have a few turnovers. Defense was very opportunistic that day, and we found a way to win a really good, close football game. And I think that really kind of jump-started our season. We ended up winning 10 games that year, but it all started by we started fast in that game, and we just start to finish played really well. And it's tough. I mean, it was tight down to the very end. I think they were almost in field goal range when we stopped them. So expect nothing different this week.
It's obviously a unique time with the transfer portal, and Sonny Dykes going to TCU was a very unique move. It also presented, I guess, a chance that if any SMU players wanted to follow him to TCU, they could have. When you first got here, I guess, how much, when you were recruiting your own roster, how much of a unique vulnerability, do you think that might have been, knowing that those circumstances?
No, I think it was incredibly unique, and we all know that. And it's nobody's fault. It just was a unique situation that doesn't happen a lot in college football, but I think everybody handled it well. Fortunately for us, most of the people stayed. They wanted to stay, and they wanted to be here at SMU, and we're excited they're all here.
How important was getting guys like Rasheed Rice and other seniors that come back to kind of also talk to the other players about staying?
Yeah, no, I think it was important. Look, we just tried to be real. Fortunately, I knew probably over half of them, and the ones I didn't knew the guys I knew. And credit our players, man. All I asked them to do is just trust us and give us a chance, and they did. And I think they're happy they did, and I know we're happy they did as well.
Coach, I'm running a feature on Paul Lane this week.
Yeah.
You've been here before. Just kind of talk about like his legacy, what he meant to this, program, school, all that.
Yeah, had the fortune of being here in 2018 and 19. Obviously, Paul was at every one of those games, and got to know him over those few years. And I don't think there's a lot of words that would describe Paul Lane, but commitment, passion for SMU, I think speak for itself. But he's just a good person. He made everybody around him better. I said this last week, I think. I remember at my press conference, before the press conference, we saw him. He was like the first guy to show up at the press conference back in early December, and I still got a picture of him with my kids. Like he was always here. He was that constant, steady kind of figure here at SMU. And so I know we got some special things we're going to try to do to honor him and his legacy, and we're going to miss him.
How do you balance the patience needed against this defense versus staying aggressive like you guys have been?
Yeah, I mean, we got to be who we are, but I respect a lot of coaches in our business, but I may have as much respect for Joe Gillespie as I do anybody. And not just because he's a dang good ball coach. I mean, the 2 times we went against him at Tulsa, it's hard to move the football against his defenses. And it's just hard to get a first down, much less score. But just the person he is. I mean, he's everything that's good about high school and college football. He was at Stephenville back when I was recruiting Jarrett Stidham. Did a great job at Tulsa. Now he's with Sonny at TCU, and I just think he's as good as it gets. So we're going to have to be patient. At the end of the day, you hear this word, it all comes down to execution every week. That's true, but the way they play their defense probably more so than ever, because if you're just a hair off, they do a great job of always having you outnumbered in a drop 8 situation when you throw it, but also having 11 eyes on the run game when you run it. And so I think that's why you see a lot of people have to be patient, because they always have help over the top. But at the same time, they give you run looks, but when you hand it off, there's all of a sudden 8 or 9 hats to the ball. So it's a really good scheme.
What have you seen from your run game so far, and how do you get a little bit more consistency out of that group?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing we have been is consistent. I think game 1 and game 2 and game 3, we're somewhere between that 150, 200-yard mark, all 3 games. There's numbers can be skewed. We did run it 42 times, which is my experience. When you run it over 40 times in a game, it's usually pretty good. And again, a couple mishaps in the red zone, turnovers, and maybe a few calls that could have gone our way, we probably would look at it different. We'd say, wow, that was good balance, you guys won. But we didn't win, so we look at it and say, wow, we didn't run it you know, at the level. Trey averaged, I think, 4.5 yards a carry. Belton 4.4. We'd like to be closer to 5, but I think those two guys were pretty efficient. We had a couple really not great runs at the wrong times. We had a couple sacks that go to that, but you know, we got to play to our strength, and you can have balance, but not per se have 250 and 250 in the yards department. You know, and I think balance is being able to do both, and we feel like our run game is going to continue to get better. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's broken. I don't think our line's bad. I think we're running. What you do notice is we don't have a lot of negative plays when we run the football. We do go forward. I think the more we go, we'll get a little more explosive, hopefully, and maybe a little more consistent with 4, 5, 6 yard gains as opposed to a couple of those 1 and 2 yard gains. But I don't think there's a problem. I don't think it's broken. And like I said, we're moving the football. We just got to finish the drives a little better.
Do you shorten it and give Trey and Belton maybe a little bit more opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you can't play with 3 and 4 running backs. It's been a little interesting with just no major injuries, but the guys being banged up. Like Trey didn't even practice last week. We weren't even sure if he's going to be able to play. Then he did play, and I thought he played probably really well. Belton, you know, I think played well. Probably could have got a few more carries. TJ had been playing well. So, but my experience, we're glad we got 3 or 4 guys. You know, when you still got Kamar and Levine, but you usually got to have 1 or 2 backs that take the bulk of the carries. The run game's kind of like pass game. You know, quarterbacks got to get in sync, right? Got to get in a rhythm. Well, your running backs with the line got to get in a rhythm. And you know, if a running back's in and he gets a carry and he doesn't come in for 2 more drives and he gets a carry, it's kind of hard for him to get in a rhythm too. So hopefully we can just kind of, as the season now we're 3 games in, pare it down, get a little more consistency with that, and I think that'll continue to help our run game improve.
It's pretty rare in the modern age for a coach to leave for his rival school. And for you, how do you go against, or how do you approach going up against your old boss in a game like this with all this emotion coming on Saturday?
I've had to do it before, not as the head coach. I'm going to have to do it the next 2 weeks, you know. The bottom line is, I've said it before, I've got a ton of respect for Sonny. I think he needs to be appreciated for what he did here. He did a really good job. Our program's in a good place. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. I don't like playing friends, but at the end of the day, it's about the players. It's about SMU, TCU. It's not about Sonny. It's not about me. And I think he'd tell you the same thing.
But kind of going off of that, you know, scouting is what it is today, but to have a coaching staff that has personal investment in these players and really has a firsthand look at what they've done, does that change how you prepare, kind of knowing that they have an inside track to that?
Not really. I mean, like I said, Joe and I have gone against each other before. I know obviously their staff knows our personnel well. They probably know me and what I do on offense well, and our players probably know them on offense. Like, all that stuff sounds good. At the end of the day, players got to go play. I think they're going to prepare with what they think they do best. We're going to prepare with what we think we do best. And it's going to come down to blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, hold on to the football, scoring touchdowns in red zones, down field on 3rd down, like most games. And that's just the truth. Because there's a lot of that build-up when the game starts. All that goes out the window, and you're just playing football.
You're running a profile on TJ. How has he been looking in practice, and what are you hoping to see from him this season?
McDaniel?
Yes.
Yeah, he's been looking good. You know, he's played good the first 3 games. We've not had any issues from a health standpoint, and he's been really consistent. Did you have one?
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say, we talked about Joe Gillespie's defense kind of taking away the tough parts of your offense. I guess, how important is it going to be this week to get someone to step up next to Rashee Rice? I mean, Moochie did that a little bit in the 4th quarter.
No, it's going to be huge. I mean, it hurt us, obviously, with Curley going down in the first quarter. I think it was late first quarter last week. Moochie stepped up. You know, while on one hand, Rashee is maybe having the one guy with the bulk of the catches, we're having a bunch of guys catch a ball in a game. You know, there's 8 or 9 guys, it feels like, catching balls in a game. You had R.J. Maryland make some big plays. Jake Bailey coming back helped. Moochie made some big plays. Austin had a big play. So it doesn't have to be necessarily just one other guy. And I think Moochie's coming on. I think all those other guys are coming on. And I think the good news is Curley's going to be in pretty good shape here pretty quick. So, yeah, I think we're in a good place there.